So hello everybody, my name is Michele Di Paola. I live in Italy and I've been involved in digital youth work since the very first years of this new millennium with my organization Spazio Giovani based in the north of Italy. Our first projects were in 2005 more or less, and a lot of development, reflection, discussion with the growing group of people interested and curious about digital youth work, which now includes you too. So thanks for being here. And today we will be talking about the quality assessment of digital youth work. So what will be the topic or the topics of this workshop? First of all, there will be some important starting points and elements to be remembered about what is quality, how to measure, how to assess it. I mean, just so we are sure that we are starting from a common ground. Of course, if we start discussing these elements, we have to know and to recognize and acknowledge that the element of systemic change to introduce in your organizations, in your practices of digital youth work, if you want to achieve quality, are systemic, meaning that they are very wide and long-term, and those often they are resources expensive. So these are aspects that we will need to take into account and to discuss, but yeah, quality does not come cheap. The first step that I want to highlight is about feedback. How do I know if I'm doing it right? I ask. So collecting feedback and collecting proper feedback and proper ways of collecting feedbacks will be our first topic, with some hints about how to collect useful feedbacks, either for the purpose of external accountability, which is often very important and interesting for organizations. I have to show my contractors, my accountants, my employers that I'm doing what I was asked to do. And or the level of internal development, so increasing competencies of my teammates, increasing the possibility of having impact with my organization, and so on. And impact is, in fact, the second topic that we are going to see and to tackle. What do we mean with impact? Impact is something happening in time. Then how long is enough to start having an impact? Of course, it will maybe depend on the kind of impact you expect. So we will need to clarify something here as well. And then the third element is about improvement and how to implement improvement. How to do so, maybe starting and dealing with what makes you, yourself, your team, your target group passionate about in the realm of digital youth work. So starting from interest, starting from ideas that can sparkle in a group, and then work on top of that to implement improvement, as I said. So let's start, and we will start exactly from the starting points that we were listing just a moment ago. So before listing the starting points, one little element again to highlight. We're talking digital youth work, and again, we will be referring to concepts that might work for any kind of youth work, in fact. It has been like this since the beginning, or at least since the expert group definition of digital youth work, which came in 2016-18, that digital youth work is a part of the wider world of youth work. So please keep it in mind for everything I will say from now on. We are discussing elements that are element of youth work, and of course, we are discussing them from an angle, from a point of view, which is the one of youth work happening with a digital flavor in digital spaces, using digital tools, aiming at digital content, and so on and so on and so on. All right, first starting point. youth work and digital youth work as well, of course, does not exist in the void. Means that there is a complex network of stakeholders involved, and this very often makes things more complicated. But it is also important that we ask ourselves if in our digital youth work we are doing the right thing, and we are doing the right thing for whom? Hoping that the answer will always at least include young people. But still, we should take into account the complexity and the huge network of stakeholders we are involved with when we do digital youth work activities. Second starting point to be remembered, young people should always have a say. It's still youth work again, and so you should ask young people about the activities you are offering them and proposing them. So this is also why we should always find a way to ask young people for feedback. And again, we talk about feedback, and we will talk a lot about feedback in a while. And the same attention to getting feedback could work from your co-workers, your colleagues, your other youth workers, and from your employers, from your organization staff, and so on. The more we get knowledge, the more we collect feedback, helping us to understand what's happening and what's changing and what's moving and transforming, the more we will have hints to put together to design a silhouette of a quality youth work that we are looking for. Third element, different tool for different contexts, of course. We are discussing a lot of different subjects, from young people to employer to colleagues to contractors to maybe even national agencies if we are moving into the European landscape, or anyway national, local, international rules and regulation to whom you can apply to get funded and so on. Every different level calls from different approaches and tools. So yeah, let's again keep this into account. Then something else to absolutely keep in mind before diving a bit deeper into the topic. Well, talking about quality, this can mean really a lot of different things. Then let's try to, figure out some common ground here again. Quality is something which has to do with how we do things. It's about the level of detail and refinement we put in our activities. It's about how much attention we dedicate to that single user or customer or member of the target group and their unique needs. So there is a general need of better defined quality, not only in digital youth work, but in general in our sector. But anyway, at least we can have some common points as a starting agreement. So let's think and let's agree that we consider quality a digital youth work which puts every effort in offering as much as possible tailor-made approaches to meet every user needs, a digital youth work which put effort in granting attention to details, and thus a digital youth work which is putting all effort in granting inclusion. And when we talk about inclusion in digital realms, that would mean a huge and different, again, amount of elements to be taken into account. Inclusion meaning the technical inclusion, devices, connections, and so on. Inclusion meaning the way activities are designed to allow every different person with their different needs to fully be able to participate in online activities or in digital activities anyway, and so on, and so on, and so on. Also, environmental impact. This is often left aside, but we always should remember that it's not that since things happen through digital tools, they do not have a real impact on our planet and our systems. They really have. Also, talking about quality, we are very often under pressure for numbers. Then, I don't know, can quality also be defined as reaching out to a certain minimum amount of people? To me, this has always been quantity, which is often together with quality, but it's not the same. It's another game. So again, this is something on which we should be clear from the beginning with our organization, colleagues, youth workers, contractors, NAs, and so on. I'm afraid it's quite difficult to have a certain detail of quality deployed in huge quantities by the same group, usually small group of people. So another possibility can be multiplying instead of growing numbers. And point 3, again, we were talking about growth. Growth and scale and quality need to find a relationship among them. Growth is not scale. Both have conflicts, at least, with quality. Multiply, we said, is what we love, and possibly what is better to keep a quality approach. A 500 people organization can ensure quality, or a 5,000 people organization can achieve quality, or many smaller groups inside the organization multiplying the effort, or maybe smaller and different organizations coming together multiplying the effort, could be a better way to ensure a quality approach in our digital youth work. These are all open questions that I'm leaving here, unfortunately, without an answer, because I'm afraid there is no general answer, but it's a list of questions that we really should ask ourselves while discussing this topic. Okay. As I said in the beginning, you will need readiness to embark into this process. Once you start this, there's no way you can come back. But it's huge, it's deep, and it will affect your work model, your organization, your team for real and for a long time. Okay. What we know is that quality digital youth work has had quite some assessment tools already developed during the last few years. So again, it's good to start from what we already have. In the European youth work landscape, you may be familiar with the European training strategy. And they built this Yokomo assessment tool for competencies in youth work, including also digital competencies. All the links of the materials will be then provided in the last slide. Also, we, as a community of practice, have developed tools to better use our other tools. For instance, this one is a training course about how to use the competence model of the European training strategy and the self-assessment tool in a more effective way. And of course, you should be familiar already with the assessment tool created by the Digital Youth Work SNAC group of different national agencies from different countries, which is more precisely aimed at organizations doing youth work to assess the level of quality they are reaching with their youth work. So that said, we can finally dive into our first big topic. How do I know if I'm doing right? I ask. So some hints, some ideas, some proposals. or collecting meaningful feedback when doing digital youth work as a starting point to understand if I am getting quality results. Of course, asking for feedback should be always something that you implement in your digital or not digital youth work. We ask our users, our customers, our target groups, we ask ourselves, our colleagues, our teammates, and we can ask in many different ways. Of course, you can use surveys, you can use focus groups, you can use forms. I guess if you are here, you're probably looking for something more interesting. So few ideas that might be in the same time useful and effective, and maybe not the same old story. Feedback can come as digital content, especially thinking about your target groups. Well, you can use the digital environment in our favor. Right? So instead of a survey, instead of a focus group, you can ask a group of young people, for instance, to produce digital content in forms of a podcast, a video blog, also including a part of learning in the production of the content itself. And then this can be disseminated and gives you elements for proving your external accountability, as we said, so proving the rest of the world, proving your contractors, your employers, DNAs, and so on, that you are doing it right. Can be based on sounds, on images. It can be as simple as a Pinterest or a Padlet board with images to choose within, or a collection of short audio messages, mix it together in a fancy way. But building a narrative, building a storytelling, which is telling for you what you did and what happened in the life of the people that shared these activities with you, it's a way to tell something about the quality of your youth work. Feedback can come in the form of comparable data, especially if we are talking project with big numbers, or if you are reaching milestones, for instance, half of the project, the conclusion of your project, collecting meaningful data to build knowledge and then transfer it through reports, infographics, and so on. It's a way to understand if we are doing it right. Even better, if these data can be compared to other, maybe even more relevant data sets. For instance, just to quote one, RayDigi, big research of 2024 about exploring successful approaches to digital youth work on the European level. If you are collecting data that are somehow comparable and relatable to their own data set, then it's easier to see if you're following in the same paths or not. And this can be done in a lot of different ways with a lot of different and relevant data set that you may want to use as your benchmark. Third element, feedback can come as a structured process, especially for organizations, for efforts of working on internal development. For instance, if you are an organization working with young people, you could establish a digital advisory board made of young people, and which will be permanent in your organization. And you will be asking them about what you are doing, what you plan to do. And this can also quickly lead to maybe other new joint projects, or even acquiring new personnel from your organization, from this board member. And anyway, as an effective way to understand if we are doing it right, if we are achieving quality youth work. Internally speaking, it would be ideal at least having an ongoing systematic peer review activity among the team members and the different co-workers, so that we can highlight what went well and identify what could have been done differently and how, and so that the organization itself can grow the quality of the approach altogether as such. Then, impact. How do you know if I am having an impact? I wait and I analyze. So once again, especially talking about organization, we are asked to show our funders, our employers, our contractors, what is the impact that we achieved. Impact is something that very often needs a medium to long-term time for developing. Impact is measurable in a medium to long-term time. So we need time, and time need resources. So the processes that we just saw to collect feedback, well, they are often project and activities that are resource expensive. Sometimes we do not have time. We cannot afford to create such structure. Then we should start considering the idea is that defining impact is something we should negotiate with our employers and contractors and funders and national agencies and so on. I mean, if you are funding me for 6 to 12 months, the impact that I can have can only be this much, especially if you're asking me to achieve a certain level of quality. Do you remember that at the beginning of the lockdown, national agencies, some national agencies, asked organizations to keep the same numbers, the same scheduling, the same level of activities that were already planned in presence, and simply move them online with the same amount of money, the same amount of time, the same effort. And this was simply not possible. And then we started to discuss it with them, and something happened, and something changed. So we can do this. We have the possibility, the ability, and the force to affect these processes. But then we really need to take this into account. Not to mention for some specific youth work and digital youth work activities, when the real impact is when something does not happen. I'm contrasting hate speech online. So my impact is not having hate speech. And then it's particularly complicated to measure an impact which is not happening. But youth work does not exist in the void. So again, we need to be aware of the network of voices, subjects, and alliances that we can include in our effort. But anyway, as I said, if you need to define what impact you can have, you need a strategy that will put your goals on a timeline. Talking about strategy, yeah, you know that I had this article about a digital youth work strategy for organization areas, was so kind to mention it already in other workshops. I wanted to add one element to the very last point of this strategy, which is the one regarding funding. And it's exactly this one. Goals to define impact should be the result of a process of negotiation with our funders, and they have to be connected with our projects, our strategies, our abilities. Impact is something that happens at the level of personal and group development. So it's not only, again, it's not only about numbers and quantity. We already have elements to see what impact we are creating. We can see what participants are telling us in youth pass certificates that we issue them. So self-assessment is a good way to define impact. Or if we gather relevant feedbacks, as we said before, we can build on top of these feedbacks to understand what the amount of data we collect can tell us in terms of impact. Last element, impact is a process. So we always should take into account the whole process. Where you started, of course, makes a difference in terms of measuring impact. Even more if you have been able to collect data to measure the amount of steps for it you'll be able to achieve. Different contexts react differently to the same activities, to the same proposals. So if you are able to shape an activity in for your specific context, then it's easier for you to keep them relevant and keep the impact growing in time. Then, last topic, as I'm going to the end of my time, improvement. How can I make it even better? We all have some entry-level activities. This should be kept ongoing because your first target group may now have grown with you and so have different needs. But then there is another just knocking on your doors, willing to start the process from scratch. So what you already did, you can adjust and keep it there, keep it going, so that you can have another and another and another group of people having the same impact from your offer. But then, especially for the ones which already were working with you and already had a taste of the impact that you could give them, introduce new elements that matter for them, that are relevant to them, starting from their passions, their ideas, the areas in which they are already active, and building on top of those. My secret project is to try to infect formal education and school with the use of games, of video games. While I'm trying to do this, for instance, starting to use this element of passion for a lot of young people and not only young people as an element to build up and improve can be an interesting element to experiment. Last point, yeah, dare to fail. This is something which we always love to put in our presentation, but I mean, I think it needs a bit more context. I mean, I always hear about fantastic projects with fantastic outcomes, millions of young people reached and incredible results. Really, I mean, does anyone ever fail with what we do? Can we, or maybe even better, can our funders accept failure as a possible outcome, which will also give us some great learning? Because this is what we say every day to our young people. I'm not sure that this is what we practice in our organizations. Okay, I see that some questions are already coming. So in this slide, you have all the links to the materials I referred to in the different parts of this presentation. And I would stop here and saying thank you to everybody, giving my contact. This is my website and my social media account if you want to reach out and follow me. And of course, this is not the end. So let's start a conversation about these topics.